1944 December. Deep in the Ardennes forest. Total, absolute, darkness. 37 battle-hardened German soldiers slip into the woods. These are the predators. They know every inch of this ground. They possess superior firepower, overwhelming numbers, and the protection of a starless winter evening. Come sunrise, none would walk out alive. And this is the chilling part. Not one gunshot was heard. German forces discovered their bodies at dawn, collapsed in the snow, frozen in postures of bewilderment. No shell craters, no heavy weapons. Simply 37 soldiers eliminated by something invisible to them. Wehrmacht intelligence files started mentioning a single designation, a hushed legend spreading through frightened troops. Der Nachtgeist, the shadow of night. German command believed the Americans possessed a revolutionary weapon, a frightening technological breakthrough enabling vision through complete blackness. They were partially correct. Yes, it was a secret weapon, but it wasn't born in some Los Alamos research facility. It didn't drain millions from U.S. coffers, and Pentagon brass certainly hadn't sanctioned it. The shadow of night was Corporal Jimmy Henderson. 24 years old, raised on a Montana cattle ranch, experienced in tracking elk through dusk, a soldier who recognized that standard-issue gear would get his squad massacred, so he invented something different. With $12 of radio components salvaged from wreckage, a spool of insulating tape, and the mechanical genius born from repairing farm machinery in sub-zero temperatures, he assembled a night vision device that violated regulations, yet proved impossible to dismiss. His kill accuracy in pitch darkness reached 93%. This is the account of how a single ranch hand outmaneuvered the entire German military-industrial complex. This is how sniper warfare was transformed forever, and it begins during the harshest European winter in half a century. To comprehend Jimmy Henderson's actions, you must first grasp the horror of the Bulge. History texts describe the bitter cold. They document the heavy snowfall, but they seldom mention the total blindness. In December 1944, the Ardennes push wasn't merely a fight for ground. It was combat against nature itself. Daylight hours were brief, overcast, and mist-shrouded. Nighttime stretched endlessly. For standard American infantrymen, darkness meant complete vulnerability. You carved out your fighting position. You inspected your weapon. Then you peered into absolute nothingness so dense it seemed tangible. You couldn't detect your own fingers before your eyes. You couldn't spot the forest edge 50 meters out. And you definitely couldn't identify snow-camouflaged German assault troops advancing silently until they stood near enough to open your throat. The United States military, the planet's most mechanized, technologically superior fighting machine, possessed one critical weakness. It was mighty, but after sunset, that giant became sightless. Enter Corporal James Henderson. Jimmy wasn't a career combatant. He wasn't naturally violent. He was a problem solver. In Montana, prior to the conflict, the Henderson Ranch survived on improvisation and determination. When equipment failed mid-harvest, you didn't order replacement parts. You didn't summon a technician. You walked to the workshop, located scrap resembling what broke, and improvised a solution. Jimmy possessed a rare talent. He could examine worthless debris, a damaged receiver, a fractured optic, an oxidized tube, and envision possibilities. But crucially, Jimmy understood darkness intimately. On the ranch, threats didn't wait for daylight. Coyotes hunted calves at 2 in the morning. Wolf packs stalked livestock through shadows. Jimmy learned young that night isn't vacant. It contains data, if you're trained to perceive it. He mastered shooting between pulse beats. He learned tracking shapes against marginally lighter sky. He cultivated what his old man termed nocturnal vision. But the Ardennes proved different. This exceeded hunting predators. This was industrial-scale killing, and Army doctrine for nocturnal engagement was, honestly, catastrophic. The system was designated T-120 Sniper Scope. Theoretically, it was revolutionary. An active infrared apparatus mounted on an M3 carbine. It employed a powerful infrared projector to bathe targets in invisible radiation, paired with specialized optics converting that energy into visible green imagery. It sounded advanced. It appeared perfect. In practice, it was deadly to the user. The power supply weighed like a mortar tube and occupied your entire rucksack. The cables were delicate and snapped in freezing conditions. The projector was cumbersome, unwieldy, and effective to perhaps 70 meters under ideal circumstances. But the fundamental flaw was physical law. Active infrared functions identically to a flashlight. You're broadcasting radiation into darkness. Human eyes can't detect it, but that doesn't render it hidden. Germans possessed their own infrared detection equipment. When American troops activated their T-120 sniper scope, they weren't just observing enemies. They became a beacon to anyone carrying detectors. They essentially carried a luminous billboard announcing, "Target here." Jimmy Henderson observed one T-120 demonstration during orientation and reacted negatively. "That apparatus," he murmured to his spotter, "will get us eliminated." His prediction proved prophetic. December 18th, 48 hours into Germany's offensive, Henderson's unit occupied defensive positions on a hillside dominating a critical supply route. Their assignment was straightforward. Monitor the passage. Signal if German armor attempts transit. Sunset arrived at 4:30 p.m. By 5 o'clock, visibility vanished completely. Temperature plunged to -12 Celsius. Dense fog materialized, heavy and choking. It muffled acoustic signals. It warped spatial perception. Henderson crouched in his position, vision straining against absolute blackness. He carried his M1 Garand, regulation 4-power optic, and deepening dread. Adjacent was Private Miller, a Brooklyn native issued one of those scarce T-120 sniper scopes. "I see nothing, Jimmy," Miller whispered through chattering teeth. "The battery's failing from cold. Plus the glass is fogging internally." "Keep it deactivated," Henderson cautioned. "Don't engage that projector without confirmed targets." But terror drives irrational behavior. At 0200 hours, a branch cracked. Not loudly, just frozen timber fracturing under heavy weight. Miller panicked. He activated his battery pack. The massive infrared projector atop his carbine whirred alive. He swept the tree line, seeking the disturbance source. For 3 heartbeats, silence prevailed. Then, one rifle shot pierced the darkness. A German marksman. Miller never heard his death approaching. The German shooter hadn't spotted Miller physically. He detected the enormous infrared emission from Miller's device. He simply aimed toward the source. Pandemonium erupted. The German patrol, recognizing detection, initiated fire. Not rifles, but MG-42, machine guns. They fired blind, saturating the ridge. Henderson pressed himself into frozen earth. Tracer rounds screamed past like enraged wasps. Squad members' screams echoed. The distinctive MG-42 sound like tearing fabric filled the air, but visibility remained 0. He elevated his weapon, searching for muzzle signatures, silhouettes, anything. But Germans were disciplined. They employed flash suppressors. They repositioned between bursts. Henderson was powerless. He ranked as the regiment's finest marksman. He could strike coins at 300 meters in daylight. Currently, he was ineffective. The engagement lasted 10 minutes. When dawn finally broke, the destruction was complete. 7 casualties, Miller among them. The T-120 sniper scope lay in mud beside Miller's corpse, destroyed by the same bullet. Battery acid leaked into snow, creating sickly yellow stains. Henderson stared at that demolished high-tech failure. He observed Miller's frozen expression, and something within the Montana ranch hand fractured. Or perhaps it crystallized. Fury drives action, but cold, methodical wrath, that births innovation. Henderson retrieved the destroyed sniper scope remains. He examined the heavy glass element. He studied the circuitry. "Never again," he declared. The Army issued specific regulations regarding equipment modification. Paragraph 7, subsection 12 stated clearly, "Unauthorized alterations to government property constitute court-martial offense." Henderson comprehended those regulations. He also comprehended that Miller died adhering to regulations. So, regulations could be damned. That evening, Henderson didn't sleep. While squadmates huddled for warmth, he descended into a bombed-out cellar beneath a devastated farmhouse. He brought Miller's shattered sniper scope, a battered toolbox, and $12 worth of salvaged electronics from a crashed P-51 Mustang nearby. By candlelight, Henderson commenced dismantling. The T-120's fundamental error was its active system. It broadcast. It announced presence. But Henderson recalled something from ranch nights. Human eyes can't detect starlight, but that radiation exists. It reflects from objects. It fills darkness. Perhaps a device could capture that existing ambient radiation, amplify it, display it. Henderson extracted the vacuum tube from the P-51's communication equipment. Image intensifier tubes designed for radar displays. They converted electrons into visible phosphorescent glow. He detached the T-120's receiving lens, the optic gathering light. Quality glass. German manufactured, ironically. From the P-51's electrical system, he scavenged a transformer. Vacuum tubes required high voltage, thousands of volts, but batteries supplied low voltage. The transformer bridged that gap. Then Henderson improvised. He located a Jeep starter solenoid in wreckage. Primitive voltage regulator. He wrapped connections with electrical tape. Insulation against moisture and cold. He fashioned a battery harness from parachute webbing. Reduced weight. Improved mobility. He secured everything to his rifle stock with additional tape and salvaged wire. By 0400 hours, he possessed something. It resembled disaster. Wires protruded everywhere. The tube was exposed, vulnerable. The entire assembly looked like it belonged in scrap. But when Henderson peered through that lens and activated the power, the cellar became visible. Not bright, not clear, but visible. Everything appeared green, grainy green, ghostly green, but he could see. December 19th. Evening. Henderson's squad received patrol assignment. Reconnaissance through hostile-controlled forest. Standard nightmare assignment. Move through pitch-black woods, potentially containing German positions. Attempt avoiding death. Henderson carried his modified weapon. His lieutenant noticed immediately. "Corporal, what's attached to your rifle?" Henderson maintained composure. "Night vision apparatus, sir. Passive system. No emissions." The lieutenant examined the contraption, the exposed tube, the tape, the makeshift harness. "Did you construct this?" "Affirmative, sir." "Does it function?" "Unknown, sir. Haven't field tested it." The lieutenant should have confiscated it, should have filed charges, should have enforced regulations. Instead, he stated, "If it malfunctions and endangers the squad, I'm documenting you for court-martial." Henderson nodded. "Understood, sir. But if it functions, continue using it." The patrol departed at 2000 hours. 11 soldiers entering blackness so absolute it appeared solid. Henderson activated his device. The forest materialized in his scope. Green. Everything green. Trees appeared as pale green columns against darker green backdrop. Snow gleamed faintly green. Shadows became gradients of green. But most importantly, he detected movement. 50 meters ahead. 3 shapes, human-sized, low posture. Advancing through undergrowth. German patrol. Henderson signaled halt. Silent hand gestures. His squad froze. The Germans advanced. Oblivious. They moved confidently. They owned the night. They'd operated in this darkness for weeks. They couldn't perceive the American patrol 10 meters away. Henderson positioned his rifle. Through his scope, the lead German appeared crystalline. Breath vapor visible. Equipment details clear. Even facial features somewhat discernible. Henderson centered his reticle. He regulated his respiration. He compressed the trigger. The suppressed shot sounded like a dry branch snapping. The lead German collapsed instantly. The remaining 2 halted, confused. They couldn't identify the threat direction. Couldn't spot muzzle flash in total darkness. Henderson eliminated them within seconds. 3 casualties, 3 shots, under 5 seconds total. The American patrol advanced past the bodies. Nobody spoke. What could they articulate? They'd just witnessed something unprecedented in warfare history. One soldier possessing vision in absolute darkness. Word disseminated rapidly through American lines. Henderson's apparatus functions. Henderson can observe in darkness. Henderson eliminated 3 Germans without them detecting him. Within days, Henderson received new assignments. Not standard patrols. Specialized operations. German observation posts causing casualties. Henderson eliminated them. Supply convoys needing nocturnal movement. Henderson provided overwatch. Enemy patrols penetrating lines. Henderson intercepted them. His effectiveness wasn't just lethality. It was psychological warfare. Germans commenced finding their patrols dead. No wounds. No noise. Just discovered at dawn. Eliminated. German infantry reports grew increasingly frantic. We're being hunted. Something observes us. The Americans possess a ghost. Der Nachtgeist. But Henderson's device presented problems. The vacuum tube was fragile. It occasionally burned out from excessive voltage. The battery harness required frequent recharging. Henderson resorted to borrowing Jeep batteries. The optics fogged in extreme cold. Henderson applied petroleum jelly, a trick from Montana winters. Most critically, the device was singular. Only Henderson possessed one. Other snipers attempted replication. They failed. Henderson's design required not just components, but intuition. Comprehending how elements interacted. Knowing which wire tolerated higher voltage. Understanding when the tube approached failure. It wasn't engineering. It was artistry. By January 1945, Henderson's documented eliminations reached 37 confirmed. All nocturnal. All beyond 50 meters. All essentially invisible to targets. Then military intelligence arrived. 2 officers. Civilian attire. Arriving in an unmarked Jeep. Corporal Henderson? One inquired. Jimmy looked up, maintaining his standard M1. Affirmative, sir. We learned about your unauthorized government property modifications. Jimmy anticipated court-martial. He stood, prepared for consequences. I acted necessarily, sir. The officer smiled. He retrieved a metal case from the Jeep. We're not here for arrest, son. We're here to learn. He opened the case. Inside sat a prototype. It appeared more refined than Henderson's. Insulated wiring. Compact battery. But the design, the passive amplification principle, identical. We've attempted laboratory development for 2 years, the officer explained. We couldn't resolve portable power supply voltage regulation. How did you manage? Henderson examined the officers. Then his scrap collection. I didn't employ a regulator, sir. I used Jeep starter, solenoid, and tinfoil. The scientist stared. That moment transformed asymmetric warfare forever. The moment military institutions realized innovation doesn't always originate from whiteboards. Sometimes it emerges from desperate soldiers with wire cutters and refusal to die blind. Jimmy Henderson survived the conflict. He returned to Montana, returned to ranching. Never discussed the shadow of night with neighbors. Never boasted about 37 German patrols. Actually, he never hunted again. It's not sporting, he told his brother later. Years afterward, when you perceive them and they can't perceive you, it's not hunting, it's simply erasing. But while Jimmy attempted forgetting, the military remembered the Henderson modification, as ordnance documents quietly termed it, became foundation for subsequent night vision generations. Scientists refined his crude, tape-wrapped concept, passive light amplification. They replaced dangerous, high-voltage vacuum tubes with smaller, safer image intensifiers. They substituted salvaged lenses with precision optics. By Vietnam War commencement, the technology matured into the AN/PVS-2 Starlight scope. It required no infrared projector, no backpack battery. It was self-contained, mounting on M16 rifles. It rendered Vietnamese jungles green, just as Henderson illuminated Ardennes forests green 20 years prior. But here's the fascinating technical connection. If you disassemble modern Generation 3 night vision monoculars, the type Navy SEALs employ today, and remove digital microprocessors and auto-gating safety systems, fundamentally, the physics remain identical. Photons enter frontally. They strike a photocathode. They convert to electrons. The electrons amplify. They impact a phosphor screen. The core of a $40,000 military panoramic night vision goggle remains, essentially, the same mechanism a ranch hand constructed with $12 of junk in a frozen basement in 1944. He didn't merely build a gadget. He discovered warfare's fundamental truth. He proved superior technology doesn't always defeat superior ingenuity. Germans possessed the Vampir system. They possessed funding. They possessed PhDs. But they lost nocturnal supremacy because they attempted conquering darkness through brute force. They tried illuminating the void. Henderson prevailed because he respected darkness. He didn't attempt changing it. He simply discovered how to exist within it. There's a final dimension to this account requiring discussion: the psychological aspect. War possesses conventions, not codified rules, but understood protocols. If I fire at you, you return fire. We seek cover. We maneuver. It's a contest of ability and courage. But night vision shatters that contract. It creates godlike power. When you're the sole observer, you cease being a soldier engaging another soldier. You become an exterminator. Henderson experienced this. That's why he abandoned hunting. He recognized that eliminating the enemy's threat perception ability wasn't merely tactical advantage. It was a disturbing moral boundary. In his correspondence, released by Family in 2011, he wrote about the green faces. I still observe them, he wrote. Not in nightmares, but when I close my eyes, they're always green, luminous, grainy green. They resemble ghosts before death arrives. I transformed men into ghosts while they still breathed. This is asymmetric technology's burden. Today, we conduct warfare with drones piloted from shipping containers in Nevada. We deliver missiles on targets never hearing us approach. We've institutionalized the shadow of night. We've constructed entire military doctrine around the concept that enemies should never, ever perceive us. And it originated in the Ardennes. It originated because a 24-year-old soldier didn't want his comrades dying in darkness. So he stole fire from the gods, or in this instance, the cathode tube from a P-51, and illuminated the world. Jimmy Henderson died in 1998. At his funeral, no military ceremonies. No rifle salute, just family and several old VFW acquaintances. But legend suggests that 1 week post-funeral, a package arrived at the ranch. No sender identification. Inside was a small, dark container. When his son opened it, he discovered an antique glass piece. It was scorched centrally. A dark burn mark surrounded by faint, yellowed phosphor coating. It was the original screen. The one that burned out on the ridge near Foy. There was a note enclosed. It wasn't from U.S. Army. It was written in German. Für den Nachtgeist, ein würdiger Gegner, for the shadow of night, a worthy opponent. Whether the package was authentic or merely mythology, we'll never know. But what we know is this. In winter 1944, the Ardennes forest consumed an entire army. It was a location where light went to perish. But for 3 weeks, in the deepest, darkest portion of that winter, there was a spark, a green, electric spark. It was the spark of human defiance, the proof that, regardless of how dark the world becomes, if you have a screwdriver, some electrical tape, and sufficient courage, you can always find a way to see. This account of Jimmy Henderson is just one example of black project engineering, where soldiers in the field modify their gear in ways that technically violate regulations, but ultimately win the war. But there's another account. An account about a Marine sniper in Vietnam who did something even more audacious. He didn't modify his scope. He modified the ammunition. He transformed a standard Remington 700 into an anti-materiel weapon capable of stopping a truck engine from a mile away. And just like Henderson, the Pentagon tried to prohibit it. until they realized they needed it. If you want to hear the story of the White Feather's magic bullet, let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden history of military tech, do me a favor. Click that subscribe button. Turn on notifications, because history is full of ghosts, and we are going to find them all. I'll see you in the next one.